Welcome to Season 3 of DTBY's Community Podcast, hosted by the CYC.
We are a movement dedicated to inspiring, mentoring, and building the leadership qualities of tomorrow's leaders.
This season, we are connecting youth to professionals, mentors, and community leaders who possess specialized knowledge and experience in areas relevant to youth resilience and safety. By leveraging the expertise of these individuals, we hope to empower youth with information and insights that are vital for their well-being and security.
Before we introduce this episode's guest, we would first like to offer a land acknowledgement.
Although this gathering is virtual, we recognize that DTBY convenes on the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of many nations, including the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat peoples, also serving as home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples.
At the Dare to Be Youth charity, we are proud to promote the spirit of helping, sharing, and caring for our neighbors without the expectation that has been exemplified by each of these nations as the first peoples of this land for thousands of years. And we wish to acknowledge our gratitude for the ongoing opportunity to live, work, and build community on this land.
It is our collective responsibility to care for each other, to care for these lands. And it is past time to turn reflection into action. We challenge ourselves and everyone here today to commit to one tangible next step to move this work forward.
Welcome back to DTBY's Ask the Expert podcast, and welcome to the second episode of our new season. My name is Cassia, and I will be the host for this episode alongside my fellow CYC member, Alexa. On behalf of DTBY, it is our pleasure to welcome back CYC mentor, Miranda Ayim, back to the podcast. If you have been keeping up with DTBY's work over the past few years, you would know that Miranda has been making a huge impact on the CYC by empowering us with the tools to live healthy lives through DTBY's Mentorship with Miranda program. An expert in many things, Miranda is a 3-time Olympian in the sport of basketball, a certified performance and wellness coach, a motivational speaker, and the founder of Cultivate Co. Thank you so much, Miranda, for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Okay, I guess we can start off with the first question. Hi, Miranda. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. So we just want to start off by asking, for anyone watching or listening that doesn't know you, can you give us a little background on who Miranda is?
Yeah, well, just to build on that beautiful bio that Cassia shared, I've spent the last 20 years in the performance space. So did 3 Olympics with our national team for basketball. And so that's what I've been doing pretty much since high school into college. I went down to the States for school and got a degree in public relations and psychology, and then promptly put that degree not to use because I turned pro and went overseas. I spent 3 years in Turkey playing in the professional league there, and then the last 8 years of my career in France, and then with the national team every summer. And just have had a whole wealth of experience being able to travel the world, perform against the best in the world, and just learned a lot of lessons in between all of that.
That's great. It's so cool that you got to travel the world while doing something that you loved. I think a lot of people would love to have that opportunity. So let's start with your journey to becoming an Olympian. How was it growing up playing a sport at such a high level in your formative years?
So I'm from London, Ontario, and for those of you who are familiar with that, it's a smaller city. Well, not so much anymore. We're almost at 500,000 now, so a little metropolis. But it felt like a small city at the time. But I grew up in a family that we all played sports, so I was always pretty active and played all of the sports. And around the age of 13. I was kind of identified and got involved with the national team development program. So around 13 is when I really started playing basketball at a high level. And I was actually still playing volleyball at the same time. So I was playing club volleyball through high school as well. And to be honest, it might be my favorite sport, but I continued down both of those paths for a while and eventually decided to focus solely on basketball just for lack of time. And there were a few more opportunities within the world of basketball. And I think what I learned both in high school and university, playing sports and going to school, was that time management was really important. I learned a lot of those lessons very early on, as I'm sure a lot of people who play sports or who work to support themselves going through either high school or university. That's a lesson that you have to learn really early on. And then also just mindset, how to push through difficult things, because I'm continually pushing myself through physical um, challenges and struggles and pushing those limits, but also mental, because you're trying to be your best and to get better every day, whether that's in school, at your job, or on the court for my case. So those are a few of the lessons that I really learned starting to play at a high level at an early age.
That's awesome. And I guess we can translate over to say, how did playing professional basketball sort of translate to you developing Cultivate Co?
Ooh, that's been a gradual process, because the interesting thing about retiring from professional sport is I had lived overseas, like I said, for the last 15 years, and then I retired, moved my entire life back to Canada, which was a transition in itself. But also as an athlete, it's almost like you lose a bit of your identity. But one thing that was a constant throughout my whole life was I was always focused on getting better, obviously on the court. But for me, what was more interesting was getting better, like competing against myself. You always have the competition in front of you, but I always was competing against myself. Like, how can I be a better person? How can I do better in this space? So that was something that I was already writing blogs about and making YouTube videos about when I was still playing, still like literally living in France. And so when I had to start considering, okay, what am I going to do in this post basketball career? I started to develop, or at least explore, this world of coaching, and speaking kind of goes hand in hand of that, of how can I combine my passion in this area of betterment and improvement and growth with these potential career paths. And that's how Cultivate Co started, and it is still developing, because we're only like 2 years in now, and I can say I'm still learning every single day. But it's been a really interesting process.
That's awesome that you had that
That's
long-term plan, um, post basketball even, and you started that very early on. That's really awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's neat that you picked something and like stuck with it the whole time. And it wasn't just like, oh, all of a sudden I have nothing else to do, I'm going to do this. But you started when you were busy. So continuing with that idea, how do you think you have managed to be successful in multiple areas of your life surrounding not only the world of athletics, but now business management?
Mhm. Well, it's similar to those lessons that I mentioned I learned in high school and university. Those have continued trending throughout my entire career, and now in my post career or new career. But I've noticed even more the value of habits. And again, when I say habits, like sometimes we have preconceived notions of like, oh, these are just things that I want to work out more. I want to like do this more. Um, but because I went through such a transformational, transitional stage, it almost was like all of the habits that I had learned throughout my career were turned on their head, and I had to relearn everything. And so there was a period of time where I descended into some deep darkness of like, oh my goodness, like what am I need what should I be doing every day? Because when I'm working for myself, you don't really have a structured um routine. And I wasn't working out. I went from working out every day to like not working out at all. And that had an incredible impact on obviously my physical health, but it didn't like deteriorate overnight. But my mental health, I saw like really rapid change in that, just like lower motivation, lower focus. So when I started to get really serious on, okay, what do I want to be doing? And you don't have to have perfect clarity around what you want to be doing or a perfect 5 year plan. What do you just need to know, what direction do you want to be headed in? And then making a bit of a work back plan of like, okay, what can I be doing every day to support that? And that's not necessarily read this chapter. It's like, how do I set myself up for success to want to read that chapter, or provide a certain set of time where I'm available to work on these passion areas or work areas or whatever it is. So overhauling my entire habit system has been really kind of revolutionary for me to be successful in this second stage of my life.
That's awesome. And I think creating those habits again translates to the next question. But when you have these goals in your life that you want to accomplish, whether it's in the Olympics or Cultivate Co, how did you go about approaching them?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was a perfect segue then, because I'll just build on my last answer, which was it is really just being intentional about what you want to do, and that for sure shows up in your habits, aka what are you doing every day? Because we know we are the kind of sum of what our everyday actions are. So those decisions determine who you become, which is kind of weighty in the sense that there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it, but it's also kind of cool because it's very empowering. Like, you want to do this, or you want to be this person, or you want to grow in this area. It just requires a little bit of intentionality around what you're doing every day, and only requires 1% improvements. I talk about this with CYC. We're going to talk about it again in our upcoming mentorship with Miranda, but I sometimes refer to James Clear's Atomic Habits, those like 1%ers that make a big difference when you compound that. And that's what we're talking about. And then I'd say another key factor that has contributed to this being able to reach my goals is a bit counterintuitive. So maybe a little bit controversial, but also being open to opportunities within that process. So it's good to be really clear on where you're going, to have that kind of North Star direction, but also not being so hyper fixated that you miss out on something that's really great that might align. Because honestly, the way my life has turned out, I couldn't have predicted ending up here. I honestly couldn't have predicted in high school that I would be a 3-time Olympian. It wasn't necessarily the goal at that time in my life, and it progressed naturally as more and more opportunities came to me that I would have missed if I was hyper focused on, heading into the public relations industry, which I have my degree in. So being flexible in that space can actually kind of build greater success than you might have originally set out to have.
That's cool, because I'm just thinking about my university experience, and I know I started off in university in a completely different path from where I am 3 years later. So yeah, I look forward to mentorship with Miranda, as I do every year. So is there anything young adults such as ourselves can take away from your trials and tribulations of your journey to pursue the goals that you were after?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a juicy question that might require a little bit more going into at another time. Dun dun dun. Cue sequel with Miranda. But one thing that has provided a lot of growth, and honestly, I'm still growing in this area, is just being comfortable with failure, being comfortable with not pleasing everybody all the time, being comfortable with not comparing yourself with everybody, because I think that's just a really lethal place to be. And I did that for a good amount of my career. And I think that takes away from both your energy and your focus, because you are uniquely you. We all bring something special. We all bring something unique. And I think we can take from other people's examples and implement them into our own life, but it's a waste of time trying to replicate someone else's things when we should be focusing on developing our own strengths. I think that's what makes us humans really cool, is just the diversity of experience and thoughts and ideas that we bring. So focus on that, and don't get too caught up on those external inputs.
Yeah, and I think that's really useful, especially for today. I was just thinking when you were saying that about the expansion when you think of social media and so much information, people that are out there. I think kids, especially my age, are always bombarded with so much information that's hard to take it all in. But like you said, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, like learning throughout the process and growing is really important. But that concludes our episode on Dare to Be You's Ask the Expert podcast. On behalf of Dare to Be You and the CYC, Cassia and I would like to thank you for your commitment to mentoring and providing a sense of direction to dozens of young people through mentorship with Miranda, which we're so excited about. Thank you for tuning in to our latest episode of Ask the Expert. Follow us on social media to stay up to date when new episodes drop at Dare to Be You Halton and at CYC for Change.